This is the beginning of a story God started long before Joseph was born. Even before his birth, God had already placed a destiny inside his family. Jacob, his father, still carried the pain of his past, but also God's promise over his future. And in that home, in the middle of wounds, rivalries, and fragile hopes, God was about to send a child who would not simply be a son, but a sign, a reminder that even when families are broken, God continues writing stories of redemption. Joseph was born into a home where love and tension lived together. But from the first moment, Jacob knew this child was different. He saw in him a light, a gentleness, an innocent purity. And in heaven, God was already, "This child I will use to save nations." No one around them could imagine that this fragile baby in his mother's arms would one day become an instrument of salvation for an entire people. Joseph was not born by accident. He was born with intention, with a divine mission. This is the story of a child chosen by God long before he understood the world he was born into. Joseph was 17, working in the quiet fields, helping his brothers, living a simple life. But God was preparing something greater. One night, Joseph had a dream so vivid, so divine, he could not keep it to himself. We were tying bundles of grain, and suddenly my bundle stood upright, and your bundles gathered around it and bowed before mine. His brothers stared at him, confused, offended, threatened. "How can you rule over us?" they said. But Joseph did not understand the meaning yet. It was not pride, it was prophecy. Then came a second dream, even stronger than the first. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed before me. His father Jacob was shocked, but deep inside, he felt something sacred in Joseph's words. The dreams were not from Joseph, they were from God. A glimpse of a destiny far beyond the fields, far beyond anything Joseph could imagine. This was only the beginning. In a home that should have been filled with love, but instead, shadows began to grow. Joseph's brothers watched him from a distance, not with admiration, but with quiet jealousy. Joseph was young, full of dreams, full of innocence. But innocence can be misunderstood, and his brothers misunderstood him deeply. Every time Joseph spoke with joy, they heard pride. every time he shared what God showed him, they felt threatened. His father Jacob loved him dearly, and the favor Joseph carried became a heavy weight for his brothers. They whispered among themselves, their hearts tightening, their patience fading. What was once simple brotherhood slowly turned into bitterness. But Joseph had no idea. He did not know that the dreams placed inside him were stirring storms he could not see. He only knew this, that God was near, and that the future felt bright. But destiny always begins with tension, and Joseph's journey was just entering the fire. Joseph's brothers had gone far from home to pasture their father's flocks near a place called Dothan. Jacob grew uneasy. News travelled slowly in those days, and a father's heart imagines many dangers. Go and see if all is well with your brothers, he said to Joseph. Then come back and bring me word. Joseph obeyed without hesitation. He wrapped himself in the robe his father had given him and set out across the hills, not knowing that this walk would change his life. The sun burned over the dry fields. Dust rose beneath his sandals. Yet Joseph walked with a quiet confidence, believing he was simply doing what his father asked and what God allowed. From a distance, his brothers saw him coming. The colors of his robe, the way he walked, they recognized him long before they could see his face. Old resentments rose like fire in their hearts. Words Jacob once spoke, memories of Joseph's dreams, all mixed together into bitterness. Here comes the dreamer, one of them said. The word dreamer was not gentle on their tongues. It was a weapon, a way to reduce Joseph from brother to threat. In the middle of that field, where the wind should have carried laughter, another conversation began. Come now, one voice whispered. Let us get rid of him. One suggestion after another, darker than the last, spilled out of wounded hearts. They spoke of killing him, of throwing him into a pit, of erasing his dreams from their memories. But heaven was listening, and God would not let their hatred write the final line. Reuben, the eldest, felt fear rise within him. He heard the anger in his brothers' voices, but he also heard the echo of a father's grief that would surely follow. Let us not shed blood, he said. Throw him into this empty cistern here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him. Reuben planned to rescue Joseph later, to bring him safely back to his father. Even in the middle of a trap set by men, God was already weaving a different plan. Joseph kept walking, unaware of the storm gathering in their hearts. To him, the field of Dothan was just another place on the journey. To God, it was the doorway from a protected boyhood into a destiny that would one day save nations. The trap was waiting, but so was providence. Joseph walked toward his brothers, carrying food and goodwill, never imagining what waited for him. But before he could even greet them, their faces hardened, their hearts burned with envy. They surrounded him. The tone changed, words turned into anger, and anger turned into violence. They tore off his robe, the one his father gave him, and dragged him toward a deep, empty pit. Joseph cried out, but the only answer was the echo of his own voice. He fell into the darkness, alone, bruised, betrayed by the people meant to protect him. Above him, his brothers walked away, unmoved. To them, Joseph was gone. But heaven had not forgotten him. God's plan did not end in a pit. Sometimes your story falls into a pit before it rises into purpose. The desert wind carried a story of betrayal deeper than the sand beneath Joseph's feet. The brothers watched from a distance as the caravan approached slowly, bells ringing on the camels' necks. These traders, men Joseph had never seen, would decide the next chapter of his life. The brothers whispered, "It's better this way." But their eyes knew the truth. Guilt had already entered their hearts. The traders saw Joseph, young, healthy, strong, and without hesitation they asked, "How much for the boy?" Silver exchanged hands, and in a single moment, Joseph was no longer a son, nor a brother, but property. His wrists were tied, his future rewritten. His steps led toward a land he had never known, Egypt. But heaven whispered, "This pain is not the end. It is the doorway to purpose." This part of the story is not about Joseph, but about the father who loved him. Jacob had already suffered many losses in life, but nothing prepared him for the day his sons returned without Joseph. Their clothes were torn, their faces pale, their hands shaking as they held out a robe. Joseph's robe, covered in blood. Jacob's heart stopped. His breath cracked inside his chest. They told him, "Father, a wild beast devoured him." But the truth was far darker, and Jacob would never know. He fell to the ground, crying out with a pain that pierced the heavens. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and refused to be comforted. Days passed, nights passed, but his sorrow remained. His home grew silent, his eyes dimmed with grief, and every dawn felt heavier than the one before. Jacob whispered to himself, "Surely I will go down to my grave mourning for my son." He didn't know that God was still writing the story. He didn't know that the son he believed dead was still alive. And one day, that broken heart would beat with joy again. This is the moment when Joseph's life changed forever. Dragged through the desert, dust in his hair, ropes on his wrists, Joseph finally saw the gates of Egypt rising before him, a world he had never imagined, a land of stone temples, golden statues, and thousands of people moving like a river of voices. He was no longer a son, no longer a brother, but a slave, sold to strangers who didn't know his name. Yet even here, in a land far from home, Joseph felt something deep inside him. God had not abandoned him. The merchants led him to the market, where men were bought and sold like objects. Joseph stood silently as the crowd examined him, his future hanging by a thread. And then a man stepped forward, a commander of Pharaoh's guard, a man of authority, discipline, and power. Potiphar. His eyes studied Joseph carefully, not with cruelty, but with a strange curiosity. And in that moment, Joseph didn't know it yet, but God was opening a door. A new chapter was beginning, a chapter that would shape the destiny of nations. Joseph walked into his new life, alone, uncertain, but held by a promise. God is with you, even here. Joseph arrived in the house of Potiphar, a commander of Pharaoh, a man of authority, discipline, and power. Potiphar watched him closely, and something in Joseph stood out: his honesty, his calm spirit, his excellence in every small task. What others ignored, Joseph did with care. What others rushed, Joseph completed with integrity. And soon, Potiphar noticed that everything Joseph touched prospered. So he placed Joseph over his entire household. A foreigner, a former slave, now trusted with the affairs of a great Egyptian home. servants began to follow Joseph's instructions, the house became more organized, more peaceful, more blessed. Because God's favor rested on Joseph, even in a land of captivity. But blessings often attract jealousy, and soon the eyes of the household began to watch Joseph with envy, and whispers began to rise in the shadows. Yet Joseph remained the same, faithful, honest, and aware that God was preparing him for something far greater. Even here, Joseph whispered at night in his small room, "God is with me." And he was. Joseph had been lifted from slavery, but his greatest test was not chains, it was character. In the house of Potiphar, Joseph was trusted with everything. God's favor rested on his work. Whatever Joseph touched prospered. But blessing attracts attention. Potiphar's wife noticed him. Day after day, she tempted him, not with force, but with persistence. Joseph faced a choice: pleasure for a moment, or faithfulness for a lifetime. He said no, not because he was weak, but because he was strong. "How could I do such a wicked thing," he said, "and sin against God?" He ran from temptation. He chose holiness over comfort. But integrity has a cost. False words replaced truth. Lies replaced loyalty. Joseph lost his position, but not his righteousness. And though no one defended him, God saw everything. Sometimes doing the right thing leads you into deeper trouble, but heaven records every act of faithfulness. God was not finished. Joseph had done everything right. He served faithfully. He worked with integrity. He honored God when no one was watching. But righteousness does not protect you from false accusations. Potiphar's wife looked at Joseph not with respect, but with desire. Day after day she tempted him, and day after day Joseph refused. "How could I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" One day, when no one else was there, she grabbed his cloak. Joseph ran. He chose purity over comfort, obedience over pleasure, God over reputation. But the cloak remained in her hands, and with it, she created a lie loud enough to destroy a faithful man's name. Joseph did not defend himself. He did not argue. He did not fight back. He was silent while the truth was twisted. And in a single moment, Joseph went from trusted servant to accused criminal. Not because he sinned, but because he refused to. Sometimes the price of obedience is misunderstanding. Sometimes doing right leads you deeper into darkness. But even here, God was still writing the story. Joseph stood silent as the accusations echoed through the house of Potiphar. No witness defended him. No voice spoke on his behalf. The truth lived in Joseph's heart, but lies ruled the room. Potiphar listened as his wife spoke, with tears and anger, twisting rejection into betrayal. Though Potiphar had trusted Joseph more than any servant before him, doubt crept in like a shadow. Honor demanded judgment. Authority demanded action. And so, Joseph was bound. Not because he was guilty, but because righteousness is often punished before it is vindicated. The hands that once managed Potiphar's wealth were now tied with rough cords. The feet that walked freely through halls of favor now dragged across stone floors. Joseph was taken to the royal prison, a place reserved for the king's enemies, a place of iron bars and forgotten souls. As the gates closed behind him, darkness swallowed the light he once knew. This was not the first pit Joseph had fallen into. He remembered the well in Dothan, the betrayal of his brothers, the sound of laughter fading as he was left alone. Again he was abandoned. Again he was falsely accused. Again he was stripped of freedom. But something within Joseph had changed. The prison walls could not imprison his faith. The chains could not bind his trust in God. Scripture tells us, "But the Lord was with Joseph." Even in the lowest place, God had not left him. Days turned into nights, nights into months. The weight of injustice pressed heavily on Joseph's soul. He could have grown bitter. He could have cursed God. He could have surrendered to despair. But Joseph chose faith. In the darkness of the prison, Joseph prayed. Not for revenge, not for escape, but for strength to endure. Slowly, quietly, God began to work again. The prison warden noticed something different about Joseph. Though a prisoner, Joseph carried peace. Though chained, he walked with purpose. Responsibility was placed in his hands once more. Trust followed him, even behind bars. What others meant as punishment, God was turning into preparation. Joseph did not know it yet, but this prison would become a doorway. This delay would become destiny. This suffering would shape a savior for many. Because sometimes, before God lifts you up, He allows you to go down, not to destroy you, but to position you. And so Joseph descended into prison, but his story was far from over. The prison became Joseph's new world. Stone walls replaced open skies. Iron bars replaced freedom. Silence replaced the sounds of purpose he once knew. Yet Joseph did not surrender his heart to bitterness. Though falsely accused, though forgotten by men, Joseph remained faithful to God. Each morning he rose with resolve, not knowing when justice would come, only knowing that God was still present. The prison held many broken souls, men crushed by guilt, men consumed by regret, men abandoned by hope. Joseph saw them, and he cared. Instead of retreating into himself, Joseph served. He listened to pain. He offered kindness. He worked diligently, even when no reward was promised. And once again, what followed Joseph was favor. The keeper of the prison noticed him. Trust was placed into Joseph's hands. Responsibility followed obedience. Soon, Joseph was overseeing others, not because of position, but because of character. Though chained by circumstance, his spirit remained free. The days were long, the waiting was heavy, justice seemed distant. Still, Joseph refused to lose faith. He remembered the dreams of his youth, not with pride, but with quiet hope. If God had spoken before, God would speak again. In the darkest place of his life, Joseph became a light to others. His faith did not depend on comfort. His obedience did not depend on recognition. Because true faith is not proven in blessing, it is revealed in suffering. And though Joseph did not yet know it, every faithful step in that prison was leading him closer to the throne. The waiting was not wasted. The silence was not empty. God was still writing the story. Time passed slowly within the prison walls. Days blended into one another, and hope often felt distant. Then one day, 2 new prisoners arrived. They were not ordinary men. One was the chief cupbearer of Pharaoh, the other, the chief baker. Both had once served in the presence of the king. Both had fallen from favor, and both now shared the darkness of confinement. Joseph observed them quietly. He did not know their crimes, but he recognized their sorrow. One morning, Joseph noticed their troubled faces. Their sleep had been disturbed. Their hearts were heavy. Joseph approached them with compassion and asked, "Why do you look so sad today?" They answered, "We have had dreams, but there is no one to interpret them." Joseph listened carefully. Then he spoke with calm confidence. "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." The cupbearer spoke first. He described a vine with 3 branches. It budded, blossomed, and produced ripe grapes. He pressed the grapes into Pharaoh's cup and placed it into the king's hand. Joseph listened, and God gave him understanding. Joseph said, "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will restore you to your position. You will once again serve the king." Hope returned to the cupbearer's eyes. Encouraged, the baker stepped forward. He shared his dream of 3 baskets of bread on his head. Birds came and ate from the baskets. Joseph's heart grew heavy. Still, he spoke the truth God revealed. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head, but you will be removed from your position. Joseph did not soften the message. He did not alter the truth. He remained faithful to God's word. Before they were taken away, Joseph spoke again to the cupbearer. "When it goes well with you," he said, "remember me. Mention me to Pharaoh and bring me out of this prison." 3 days later, everything happened exactly as Joseph had said. The cupbearer was restored. The baker was executed. Joseph remained behind bars. Yet even here, God was proving that his gift was alive in Joseph. The dreams were not forgotten, even if Joseph was. Then, on the 3rd day, news travelled quickly. The cupbearer had been restored to his position. The baker had been executed, just as Joseph had said. Time moved slowly in the prison. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. The cupbearer was free, restored to Pharaoh's presence, surrounded by comfort and honor. But Joseph remained. No message came. No door opened. No voice spoke his name. Joseph was forgotten. Each sunrise looked the same through the prison bars. Each night carried the same silence. 2 full years passed. 2 years of waiting. 2 years of unanswered prayers. 2 years where hope was tested in silence. Joseph could have lost heart. He could have believed that God had abandoned him, that the dreams of his youth were only illusions. But Joseph held on, not because circumstances changed, but because God had not changed. In the stillness, Joseph learned patience. In the silence, his faith grew deeper. In the delay, his character was refined. He continued to serve faithfully. He continued to walk humbly. He continued to trust, even when nothing happened. God was not absent. God was not late. God was preparing the moment. The prison was not Joseph's destination. It was his training ground. Every quiet day strengthened him. Every forgotten night shaped him. And though Joseph did not yet see it, the silence was about to break. God was ready to speak again. The silence was broken in the palace of Pharaoh. In the stillness of the night, the king of Egypt dreamed. But this was no ordinary dream. Pharaoh saw himself standing by the Nile River. From the waters rose 7 cows, healthy and strong, grazing peacefully among the reeds. Then 7 other cows came up after them, ugly and thin, their bones visible beneath their skin. Without warning, the thin cows devoured the strong ones, yet they remained just as gaunt as before. Pharaoh awoke, disturbed. Sleep returned, and the dream came again. This time he saw 7 ears of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 other ears appeared, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin ears swallowed the full ones. Pharaoh awoke again. His spirit was troubled. At dawn, Pharaoh summoned the magicians and wise men of Egypt. He told them his dreams, but none could explain their meaning. The wisdom of Egypt fell silent. Knowledge failed. Answers could not be found. Fear spread through the palace. If the king was troubled, the nation was at risk. The dreams carried weight. They demanded interpretation. But Egypt had none. Unknown to Pharaoh, unknown to the court, unknown to the nation, God was stirring destiny. The moment long prepared was drawing near. The silence of 2 years was about to end, and the name of Joseph was about to be spoken again. Pharaoh's dream still weighed heavily upon him. No explanation had been found. No wisdom had answered the night. Then, suddenly, a memory awakened. The chief cupbearer stepped forward. With hesitation and humility, he spoke. "I remember my faults today." He told Pharaoh of a Hebrew man in prison, a servant, a dream interpreter. He spoke of Joseph. At once, Pharaoh commanded, "Bring him to me." The prison doors opened, quickly this time. Joseph was summoned. Chains were removed. His garments were changed. He was shaved and washed. From the depths of the prison, Joseph was brought before the throne of Egypt. Joseph stood before Pharaoh, the weight of the moment heavy in the air. The king began to speak. "I dreamed a dream," Pharaoh said, "and no one could interpret it." Then Pharaoh recounted the visions of the night: the cows by the Nile, the ears of grain, the abundance and the destruction. Joseph listened carefully. Every word mattered. When Pharaoh finished, silence filled the hall. Joseph answered with clarity and calm. "The dreams of Pharaoh are one," he said. "God has revealed what he is about to do." Joseph spoke with authority, not his own, but God's. There will be 7 years of great abundance throughout Egypt. The land will overflow with harvest. Then his voice grew solemn. After them will come 7 years of severe famine. The abundance will be forgotten, and the famine will consume the land. The court listened in awe. Joseph continued, "The doubling of the dream means the matter is fixed by God. and God will bring it to pass soon." Then Joseph went further. He offered wisdom. "Let Pharaoh appoint a wise and discerning man to oversee the land. Let grain be stored during the years of abundance, so the nation may survive the famine." Joseph had spoken truth. He had spoken courage. He had spoken wisdom. The prisoner stood as a prophet before the throne. The dreams were no longer a mystery. God had revealed his plan through Joseph, and Egypt would never be the same. Pharaoh looked at his servants and spoke with conviction. "Can we find anyone like this man, in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh turned to Joseph. "Since God has shown you all this, there is no one so discerning and wise as you." In a single moment, chains of prison were replaced by robes of honor. Pharaoh continued, "You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be governed by your word. Only the throne will be greater than you." A ring was placed on Joseph's hand. Fine linen clothed him. A chain of gold rested on his neck. Joseph, once a prisoner, now stood as governor of Egypt. Pharaoh gave him authority over the land, over grain, over cities, over life itself. The chariots moved, the people bowed. "Bow the knee," they cried. Joseph rode through Egypt, not in pride, but in purpose. The dreams of his youth had begun to rise before the eyes of the world. God had lifted him from the pit to the palace. The land of Egypt entered a new season. Under Joseph's leadership, the years of abundance began. The Nile overflowed its banks, and the fields produced beyond measure. Grain grew in such abundance that it could no longer be counted. Joseph traveled throughout the land, organizing, storing, preparing. In every city, storehouses were built. In every region, grain was gathered. The wisdom God had placed within him guided every decision. Joseph did not waste the years of plenty. He remembered the warning. He remembered the dreams. While the people rejoiced, Joseph planned. While the harvest was great, he prepared for what was yet to come. Day after day, the storehouses filled. Egypt prospered. The surrounding nations watched in awe. And, in the midst of abundance, God was quietly preparing salvation for many lives. The years of harvest were not an end, but a beginning. The years of abundance came to an end. Just as Joseph had foretold, the famine began. The land grew dry. The fields no longer produced. Hunger spread across Egypt and beyond its borders. But in Egypt, there was bread. The storehouses Joseph had filled now became the hope of nations. People cried out to Pharaoh for food. Pharaoh answered them, "Go to Joseph. Do whatever he tells you." From every land, people came to Egypt to buy grain. Caravans crossed deserts. Families traveled in desperation. And Joseph, seated in authority, opened the storehouses. He sold grain to the hungry, not knowing that among those who would soon arrive were the very ones who had once betrayed him. God's plan was unfolding. What had been prepared in secret was now revealed to the world. In the midst of famine, Egypt became a place of salvation, and Joseph stood at the center of it all, unaware that his past was about to return to him. The famine reached the land of Canaan. Jacob heard that there was grain in Egypt and sent his sons to buy food. The brothers journeyed south, not knowing what awaited them. They entered Egypt and stood before the governor of the land. Joseph saw them. At once he recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Time had changed his appearance. Authority had changed his position. Joseph remembered the dreams of his youth. He saw them bowing before him, just as he had once seen in vision. Yet his heart was not hardened. He spoke to them through an interpreter, testing their words, observing their hearts. The past stood before him in living form. The wounds of betrayal and the promise of God met in a single moment. And Joseph remained silent, watching, waiting to see what God would reveal next. Joseph spoke to his brothers with authority. He accused them of being spies, strangers with hidden intentions. Their hearts trembled. They defended themselves, speaking of their father, of the brother who was no more, and of the youngest who remained at home. Joseph listened carefully. He tested their words, not for revenge, but for truth. He ordered one brother to be bound and sent the others back with grain. Fear followed them on the road. When they discovered the silver returned in their sacks, their guilt awakened. They said to one another, "This is because of what we did to our brother." Joseph heard their words. He turned away and wept in silence. The test had begun, not to punish the past, but to reveal their hearts. The brothers returned to Canaan, their sacks full of grain, their hearts full of fear. They stood before their father Jacob and told him all that had happened. They spoke of the ruler of Egypt, stern and powerful, who accused them of being spies. They told him of the brother left behind, bound and waiting in Egypt. When Jacob saw the silver returned in their sacks, his heart sank. He cried out in sorrow, "Joseph is gone, Simeon is gone, and now you would take Benjamin." His words were heavy with grief. The famine grew worse in the land. Days passed, and the grain was consumed. Silence filled the house until Judah stepped forward. He offered his own life as a guarantee. Slowly, painfully, Jacob agreed. Benjamin would go, and the journey back to Egypt began, carrying hope, fear, and a destiny drawing closer to its moment. The famine still pressed heavily on the land of Canaan. Hunger drove Jacob's sons once again toward Egypt, the only place where grain could be found. But this journey was different. This time, Benjamin walked among them. When they arrived in Egypt, Joseph saw his brothers, and then he saw Benjamin, his own brother, the son of his mother. The sight struck his heart like a sudden storm. Joseph ordered that his brothers be brought to his house. Fear gripped them. They whispered among themselves, wondering what punishment awaited them now. Yet inside Joseph's home, something unexpected happened. The brothers were seated at a great table. Servants brought food in abundance. But Benjamin's portion was 5 times greater than the others. Joseph watched closely. Would jealousy rise again? Would resentment awaken as it had long ago? But the brothers did not protest. They did not complain. They rejoiced together. Joseph's heart trembled. He excused himself, retreating to a private room. There, alone, he wept. God was healing what had once been broken. When Joseph returned, he spoke gently. The meal continued. Laughter filled the room. Yet Joseph knew the test was not yet complete. The truth was drawing closer. Reconciliation was coming. But first, hearts had to be revealed. The morning came, and Joseph's brothers prepared to return home. Their sacks were filled with grain. Their hearts felt lighter than before. But Joseph had one final test. He ordered his silver cup to be hidden in Benjamin's sack, the youngest, the most loved. The brothers set out on their journey, unaware of what awaited them. Soon, Joseph's steward overtook them on the road. He accused them of theft. The brothers were shocked. They swore their innocence. Confident, they declared that if the cup were found, the guilty one would die. One by one, the sacks were opened, and there, in Benjamin's sack, was the silver cup. Despair crushed them. They tore their clothes and returned to Egypt together. Back before Joseph, Judah stepped forward, no longer proud, no longer defensive. He spoke with a broken heart. He pleaded for Benjamin's life. He offered himself as a slave in his brother's place. Judah spoke of their father, of Jacob's fragile soul, of a love that could not survive another loss. Joseph listened in silence. This was the moment he had waited for. The brother who once suggested selling Joseph now offered his own life instead. True repentance had been revealed. The test was complete. The moment had come. Joseph could no longer hold back the truth. He ordered everyone to leave the room. Only his brothers remained. Then Joseph broke down in tears. He wept so loudly that the sound echoed through the palace. "I am Joseph," he said, "the brother you sold into slavery." Fear seized them. They stood frozen, unable to speak. But Joseph stepped closer. His voice softened. "Do not be afraid," he said. "You meant this for harm, but God meant it for good, to save many lives." Years of pain melted into forgiveness. What was broken was now healed. Joseph embraced his brothers. Tears of sorrow turned into tears of restoration. Soon after, Joseph sent for his father. Jacob journeyed to Egypt, his heart filled with wonder and disbelief. When he saw Joseph alive, his strength returned. Father and son embraced. Promises once spoken in dreams now stood fulfilled before their eyes. Joseph settled his family in the land. He provided for them during the famine. Peace replaced fear. Years passed. Joseph lived to see God's faithfulness completed. Before his death, Joseph spoke words of hope. "God will surely come to your aid," he said. "Do not forget his promises." Joseph died in peace, leaving behind a legacy not of power, but of faith, forgiveness, and trust in God. And the story ends where it began, not with dreams alone, but with promises fulfilled.